Hello, lovely people. I'm back from holiday or vacation, as my American friends would say. And today we're going to continue with the boot build. We're going to install all the gear and maybe potentially we'll start with the wiring as well. So the holiday to Scotland was great. Octavia did amazing. She did about 68 to 70 miles per gallon. That's UK gallon, so it's a bit more than the US, but super efficient, fully loaded, fully deadened, like everything with extra weight, and it does fine. It doesn't pull like the Insignia because it's just like 100 horsepower or something. It's not a powerful engine, but it did fine. Fuel economy wise, bloody amazing. The subwoofers are not damaged, so these work very well. If you watched a few previous videos that I did, we did sound treatment of the roof and I did the sound treatment of the front under the hood and under the window, and it does improve things. On the motorway, it is much quieter than it used to be. It is definitely noticeable. Now it's almost a luxury car from the inside at least. So today's plan is I need to fix this board into the actual car. Now I did check from underneath. The fuel tank sits literally under the rear seats over there, so I can go all the way up there, drill holes, and they're not gonna go anywhere. It's just a heat shield under there, so I know I'm totally safe. That's why I will be using these rivets. I think I'm gonna be using aluminium ones because I do have steel and I do have aluminium. Aluminium ones don't rust because it's aluminium. I will need to find some suitable bolts. I think I do have ones with the very flat heads. I think these ones, they are long. I will need to trim them. However, they have very flat heads, you can see, so they can go in there like this and they're not gonna protrude, because any other bolts will mess up my flatness. I have this to put the rivets in. I'm gonna make probably, I don't know, probably 6 holes, 1 2 3 1 2 3. That is going to be held in place, and after that I think the next step will be to somehow try to mount everything to the sides, see what I need to do. So let me start drilling. So the layout doesn't change from the last time. I do have these 6 bolts going through the floor. I marked the battery where it sits. It goes all the way up to the seat. These are literally the center, because you can see this center line goes over there, so that's perfect symmetry. I didn't do the standouts yet. I'm gonna start with this side where I'm gonna mount this 3K monoblock and the DC-DC charger. So the monoblock is gonna go there, and I will have 3 mounting points, one there, into the metal, into the metal, into the metal, and this one there's a little gap, so we'll need to make a little spacer, maybe a standoff or a wooden piece, and then I can mount it properly. Now this DC-DC will go in like this, and what I can do, I can mount 1 bolt over there because I can put a threaded insert, and then I will need 2 L brackets on this corner here next to this wood, and then I will need to figure out how to mount that corner because it will be mounted in 3 places and I would want 4. So I'm gonna start with these and then I'm gonna figure out the rest. So with this one it's like 20 minutes to put it in. It's a royal pain in the butt because this tool, it doesn't fit in that very corner, you can see. So these 2 are fine. I put these, I think they're brass or whatever. So this brass was way too hard for me. So I made it like this so I could turn this nut and then it's gonna tighten that. And now it's tight, but I had to use the aluminium one because aluminium is much softer, and it allowed me to put it in because you can see it's so tight in there. So I do have 3 mounting points, and the 4th one I'm gonna fabricate with a little spacer. Okay, to be fair, 3 mounting points is more solid than it needs to be because it's mounted to the metal. So here at the bottom we'll be able to see so tight. One over there and one in the very corner. So these are power terminals, and I will have cable going out, bent, and going out till here. So I will have to put the power wires in first and only then mount the amplifier. As I mentioned, This is gonna be super tight. There's absolutely no other way. So I think I'm gonna leave it on 3 mounting bolts. It's gonna be fine. It's not moving at all. It's super, super tight. Now I need to mount this with the L brackets on the top. Okay, so for this one, DC-DC charger, one point is gonna be there, one point is gonna be there, and third one, I fabricated this. So, threaded insert for the actual leg, and it's gonna go like this. I just peeled off the carpet a little bit. I'm gonna put the carpet back on, and it's gonna be a bracket. And again, it's gonna be on 3 brackets. I think it's gonna be fine. There we go. This one is mounted as well. So the bracket, you cannot even see it. It's behind the carpet. One there, and it is solid as hell. Even with 3 mounting points, it is solid. We have some visitors. They're playing. They missed each other after the little holiday. So I have 2 of these mounted. Now I think I'm gonna mount the battery. That bolt over there, you can see bolts hole here. This is a factory screw for, I actually don't know what for. So I think this is gonna be a very, very good and solid ground for the DC-DC charger, which is there. So I just need to run a wire from here into there, and it's gonna be very, very good because there's nothing under there. There is one ground on this side which I used, but on that side, oh, actually there is on that side as well over there. So I'm gonna use that one and just run a cable from there until here, and I will need a very thin, probably like an 8 gauge wire, just because you can see it's a 40 amp max. So I think an 8 gauge is going to be perfectly fine for that. That's why I'm doing these threaded inserts, because these will come off and on many times before I will fit everything. So I will need actual threads. So now we're gonna do, I think, the battery. Okay, in this corner we have 3 pieces mounted. So I have 1, 2, there's another one from that side. 3 is just to prevent the battery moving back forth into the sides, and this one is 2 M6 bolts into the metal, preventing it to, I don't know, in case everything goes upside down, it's not gonna go anywhere. So this is mounted, this is solid, this is solid, everything is, like, at least to me, it is solid. It's not moving anywhere, it's not gonna rattle, it's not gonna unrattle. And these are the main 3 pieces that I want to do. Now I'm gonna mount these 2 amplifiers, the Alpine like that, and this one like that. I need to check the clearance for the cables, and I need to make little standoffs for that so I can raise it and run cables under the amplifier, as I mentioned before. But now, again, daddy duties. I need to take the little one to get her hair done. She needs a little trim, a little haircut. So put everything back, go there, come back, and start over again. All of these are fitted. Apart from those, these are just floating about because I need to measure the distance. So you can see threaded inserts into the wood, all 4 exactly same. That stands on 18mm standoffs, so I can pass any kind of cables like that I want under, and it's gonna be fine. Now the problem, a little problem, is with this corner, because I'm not sure if it's gonna be enough clearance. I wanted to use these RCAs because I really like them, but they're a bit long. So if I'm gonna put them like this, you can see they're much longer than these. These are the Nutric Ren or Rayon, whatever. And because everything is gonna go either under, either for this amplifier is gonna go here like this. So I need to make sure that this fits, and I will be putting a board just like that. This board is going to be obviously not as tall, and it's going to cover everything, and then I'm going to make a cover for the top. But this board is going to be like this with this, so I can still remove the whole cover here. And here you can see how much space I have. If I'm going to go deeper like that, I can go something like this, and then I have this much space for this amplifier. In this corner there's nothing, it's just a control, so I need access to this corner where I have the RCAs. So like this, I will have space over there, and I have RCAs there, and I'll just need to run these wires under the amplifier and for them to go out somewhere. Power, I have enough space. Now here on this side, on the DSP, I do have what my coax input and power. Remote is gonna be from this side. Now, if these are gonna be too long, I have another ones, which are these. These are much shorter, so I could push it a bit more. Like if I'm gonna remove this, like this, I can push it even closer to the board. However, these are much smaller, so we need a smaller RCA wire, and I really don't want to buy another one. And in regards to all the other clearances, I think it's gonna be fine. I have a little gap here which I can fit 8 gauge power wire like that, and RCAs will fit as well over there. So this is going to be the power situation where I'll have positive negative coming from this one going literally down into the battery. This is a 300 amp fuse that will go into the distribution, something like this, like 90 degree, and then from the distro is going to go into this amplifier, into this amplifier, into that amplifier, and into there somewhere. Here you can see 25, so this is a 4 gauge wire and it does fit nicely. So probably I could fit a 2 gauge if I really wanted to, but I don't think it's gonna be necessary because this amplifier is gonna be running the front sub for 500 watts and 2 mid basses 200 watts, so like absolute max maybe like 800 watts on 4 gauge. This length is gonna be plenty enough. So clearances is gonna be fine. And basically this is how everything is going to look. So I'll just need to run the power from here under the amplifier for that little amp and for the DSP. Probably I'm gonna run the power into the amp and piggyback from the amp into the DSP. And then RCAs under the DSP, under that amplifier for the monoblock. And there in this, and here in this. And this is, as I mentioned, my first amp rack where I am prioritizing not the wiring but the actual layout. So I want to squeeze everything to make it kind of sense and only then do the wiring and worry about it. It's not going to be very pretty. I would like to, now when I'm looking at it, because it's like central, both of those amplifiers, I would like to make a beauty panel to show off at least the Alpine, maybe both of them, but I don't know if I'm gonna bother. Probably I'm just gonna make whatever fits for now, and later I'll make another one. But now basically all of these sits flush at the same kind of level. You can see it looks like this is a little bit higher, but it's not. Actually all of them are at the same height, same level. So if I'm gonna put this board, just very careful not to scratch anything like that. Yes, everything sits kind of on the same level. Now I need to decide what RCS I'm gonna be using, and I just need to fit those floating thingies to the actual board, and literally everything will be fixed and fitted properly. I like how it looks like. It is very, very tight. Especially like those speaker wires here is gonna be super tight, but we're gonna sort it out somehow. This is the biggest piece of wood that I have. I ran out of wood altogether. So this is a smaller one, I think it's 12 mil. What I need is probably something that bends less. I'm thinking 18 mil plywood, and just make one sheet that contours around there a bit nicer, goes up till here and up till here. This is gonna be my fuses, which I would like to be accessible. So either I'm gonna make a little, I don't know, little panel that I can remove like with one finger, or I'm gonna leave it open as it is. But this is gonna be covered like that with carpet, and I'm gonna carpet this one as well. This is now not fixed at all. Probably I'm gonna use a little L bracket, so in case I will need to remove it, I'll just unscrew them and I can remove the whole thing instead of glue it in and set it, and then I might have some problems if I will need access to something. But when everything is going to be carpeted, I think it's going to look very nice. This I would not want to cover because the DC needs breathing. This has an active cooler, it needs breathing, and I need access to the lithium, I don't know, in case worst case. So I'm not gonna cover this at all. I'm gonna leave it as it is. And this one, I don't know, maybe a wooden panel, maybe carpet. We're gonna think of something. The neighbor is spraying a car, that's why it's a bit noisy. But I'm gonna leave this as it is for now because I need to buy more wood. That's it, that's enough for today. The only thing I did, I made this power wire to run there. This is a 300 amp fuse, which is perfect for the battery. I have a few of these L brackets to hold this in place, so it's not moving now at all. I do have those standoffs, as I mentioned before, and kind of the only thing that's left is the wiring. So for the time being, I'm gonna leave it as it is. I'm gonna go tidy up, go to sleep, and continue either tomorrow, either sometime next week. So it is the next day. I literally couldn't find any time to do anything today, and it is Saturday and tomorrow is Sunday, and tomorrow I will be going to work. So I decided, instead of started doing everything with the wiring, I'm gonna explain kind of in a very basic style what the system consists of, how all the connections will be made, and especially from the electrical side, because I already posted this picture on my Facebook and I had already questions. Why do you have lithium? How is everything is going to be connected? And it's like, why the DC charge and that kind of stuff. So if you're following me for quite a long time, you know what the system consists of. You kind of know why everything is done the way it is done, but I'm gonna explain it again for the new people, because this configuration was exactly the same in the Insignia. It worked, and I want to do this again. So the typical setup of any car audio system is, when you have your main power source in the front, that is your alternator and the battery, and you have a big massive wire going into the back, which in my case is gonna be this one, because now it's disconnected, now it's not live, and that wire feeds everything that you usually have in the back. Now the problem with that, when you have too much amplification, for example, this is a 3K amplifier, the front power delivery system, the car's alternator and the battery cannot support that. That's why you need something to help out, a secondary battery. Now, this car is 2014. It does have a start stop, and it does have an AGM battery, 80 amp hours. So the alternator, it is quite big for the car. I think it's 160 or 180 amps. However, it does have electric steering, so it does take quite a lot of electricity, and there's not much left for all the accessories and everything. Instead of upgrading my alternator, which would mess up all the electrical stuff, I would need coding, I would need doing everything, it's kind of pointless. I want to keep the front of the car stock with 0 changes. So to help out, I have this little diagram that I did. So for example, here is the front of the car, which is a typical setup. We have our alternator that charges the battery. The battery, in my case, goes through a circuit breaker, and the power wire goes into the back down till here. Yeah, the only thing that is powered directly from the main battery is the head unit, which is over there. And what I want is to have the whole audio system, which is all of this, completely separated from the car. The main power supply for this system is going to be this lithium battery. Now, this lithium battery, if you don't know, it's made by Crown Customs. I think this is something similar to Glow Voltage in America. Seth, I think his name is Seth, that sells them, and they have like 3 different levels depending on the discharge rate. So this supports 300 amps continuous current draw and 500 amps peak, so it's like up to 3 or 4 kilowatts. Now this 3K amp is going to be supported plenty, because all of this is not going to draw anything. So I want this to be totally separate from the car for a few different reasons. Reason number 1 is that lithium, it has a very low internal resistance. That means that doesn't matter how much amperage you're gonna put into it, it's gonna suck everything. So if it's gonna be discharged and I would connect it directly to the alternator of this car, it will suck up absolutely everything that that alternator is giving, and potentially the front of the battery, the front AGM is not going to charge. Probably it's not going to be enough for the lights, for the electric steering and everything else, because this lithium is going to suck absolutely everything. Now, to prevent that, we do have a DC-DC charger, which acts kind of as a buffer between the front and the rear. So this DC-DC charge, you can see here, it kind of separates. I marked all of this as the car electrical and all of this as the audio. So the DC-DC charge separates them kind of two sides. And what it does, it takes the power from the front, in this case 40 amps, and it gives it back into the lithium. So it charges the lithium. You can select on the back of this, you can see these dip switches. So you can select the charging voltage that you want. Again, the front alternator, the front smart charging system is designed for AGM batteries. It will charge 13.4, 13.6, 14.4, but it will float at 12.8 where the AGM floats. This needs 14.4 max, maybe 14.7, but it will float at about 13.2, so it is higher than the AGM. If you would connect this lithium to the front battery will always suck a little bit from the lithium because this sits at 13.2, so it will be kind of almost always charging the front battery, and for AGMs it's not that good. The second reason why I want everything to be separate is to prevent absolutely any possible noise that can come from different grounds or alternator wine or anything. Like, I don't know what can happen. If you have a totally separate power source from the car, absolutely no noise can come into the system. There is literally no way. And the third reason is obviously the amount of power that the battery can supply. The front is not going to support 3K, especially on stock alternator. This battery will support it. So think about, like, when music is playing, it's not constantly playing sine tones. It does have like music pulse, bass, so it's not a constant sine tone. That's why even if this is drawing 40 amps constantly and putting in this can give 2 kilowatts, 2.5, 3 kilowatts, and still not be depleted, because while you're changing a song, like, I don't know, 5-10 seconds where there's a quiet space in the music where there's no bass, this doesn't take any power, the subs. However, this is still feeding full 40 amps into the battery. That's why I said in my post, and somebody didn't understand it, that I can have an 8 gauge wire going from the front, which is this one. I can have an 8 gauge wire going into the DC-DC charger, because this main power wire will need only 40 amps. Well, maybe 50 if the voltage is a bit lower, if we'll consider like losses, because it's not 100% efficiency, so maybe 45, 50 amps maximum. So I don't need that 2 gauge power wire that I have now, which is a very good benefit. So from the DC-DC charger, I will have, I'm planning to put another circuit breaker that goes into the lithium. So I have this one, which is going to be 100 amps. It could be 60, it could be 40 amps, because only 40 amps is going to go. So I'm going to put it right there, maybe before the lithium. I'm not sure where to put it. So from the DC-DC charger, the power going into the lithium, and lithium is going to power everything. Power distribution is going to be my dispositive. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep the silver one or this golden one, because this golden, you can see it looks very nice with the golden terminals here. So like that. I think it might add some zing. From the distribution, it will go all over the place. So we have DSP, amps, and potentially maybe fans if I will need them. So the cable runs are going to be very short, from here till there, from here till there, and from here till there. And one small wire is going to go into here for the DSP and that little amp. Now, in regards to the gauge, I am planning to do a separate back to basics video about fusing the cables and what kind of cables actually use. I'm just going to mention it very quickly that when you're calculating the power draw in amps for any amplifiers, and everybody says you need to match the fuse rating on the amplifier. That is incorrect. The only time you have to do this is for a monoblock if you're wiring it down to the lowest impedance. If you have a 4-channel amp and you will be running 4 ohm speakers, you can cut that amperage in half. So for example, this one, it says here, use an 80 amp inline fuse. 80 amps is only if you're running 4 channels at 2 ohms on resistors. If I'm going to be running 4 ohm speakers, I can cut it in half to 40 amps. And potentially with mid-end tweets, I think 10 amps is going to be more than enough. This, I think, idles at what, 2.5 or 3 amps, and maybe a couple extra amps. I could power this amplifier probably with the 18 or 16 gauge wire and this distance, and it's not gonna blow. I guarantee 100%. That amplifier has, I think, 2 times 25, 50 amps. Again, if I'm going to be running only 4 ohm speakers, I can cut it in half, 25 amps. 25 amps, 10 gauge wire, 12 gauge wire, this distance is going to be plenty enough. That, again, it doesn't have any fusing, but you can kind of calculate it. So the power wires and the fusing can be much, much lower than it states on the amp. The only one that I have to be careful is this one. This would need probably a 300 amp fuse. I'm not sure if I have a mini INL 300 amps. I'm gonna put a 200 amp fuse and see how it does, because it will be wired down to 1 ohm and it will need to pass at least 2500 watts. So I'm gonna put 200 amps. If it's not gonna be enough, probably I'm gonna put a separate 300 amp fuse for this amplifier. Now, there is a problem with this situation, because this DC-DC charger, as I mentioned, it separates the car system from this system. We are always used to having one ground for everything that we use. We have one power coming there, and we have a ground somewhere that grounds literally everything. In this configuration with a DC-DC charger, I need 2 grounds. One ground is going to be only for the DC-DC charger input side that goes with that positive that's coming from the front. That's it. All of this, the ground point, is the lithium's negative. And here we have kind of a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is, if I'm going to take positive cable from the lithium and I'm going to touch it to any kind of ground of the car, is not going to do anything, because the lithium ground is not connected to the car's chassis. That's why we have here chassis ground for the DC-DC charger, but after that, all the amplifiers will have the negative from the lithium. Exactly the same. If I have this power cable that's coming from the front and I will literally touch the amplifier ground, it's not going to do anything, because it's not connected. The ground planes are not the same. It's 2 totally separate systems. They do not share a ground. Because of that, the remote wire that is coming from the head unit, it should turn on the DSP, but it will not, because the remote circuit has a chassis ground. So 12 volt remote from the head unit and chassis ground here will make a circuit. Since this DSP is powered from the lithium, which doesn't share the ground, I cannot trigger the DSP from the head unit. I need a small little relay that would disconnect and connect the DSP remote in from the lithium. Basically, how I need to turn on the DSP is I need to run positive and negative from lithium into the DSP. The positive, I need to split it into remote in through a relay, and that relay has to be triggered by the head unit remote. This is the most complicated part of all of this, unless you can think of any other way to trigger the DSP, maybe like high level inputs or maybe Bluetooth or I don't know. But this is just the simplest way, just to use a relay to toggle the remote in. And after that, the remote out of the DSP can go into each individual amp as normally. Now, another problem is with this DC-DC charger. The DC-DC charger has, let me show you on the side, it has these two things. One is, I think it's called D+, and the other one is LC or whatever, or LO. So D+ is basically a remote trigger that goes into the DC-DC charger, telling it to turn on and off. So this can be done with the remote from the head unit, for example, because the input side shares the same ground as the head unit. However, the problem is that when you turn the ignition on, the head unit turns on, and this turns on straight away, and it starts drawing 40 amps into the lithium. With the ignition on only, the car is not running. What I need is for the DC-DC to start working only when the car is on, when the alternator is working, because otherwise it's just gonna drain my front battery and I won't be able to start my car. That's why that remote in should be from the alternator. However, I'm not gonna do that. I have a few different things. First, I have this one. This is a AliExpress relay that is configured according to the voltage. Basically, what's happening, it has a plus and minus in, and it has plus and minus out. The output is enabled only what you set it at. It can be lower than or bigger than a certain voltage. So if I will put this thing in front of that trigger for the DC-DC charger, and I will set that please enable this output only when the voltage is above 13 volts. So basically, I turn the ignition on, there's nothing happening because it's 12.6. When I turn the car on, the alternator starts charging. It brings up the voltage up to 13, 13.4, 14.4. Then it triggers this, and only then the DC-DC charger starts to charge the lithium. When that happens, I do have another little problem, that it starts drawing 40 amps straight away when everything is cold and when I need that power to charge the upfront AGM. Because we know after we start the engine, first thing that alternator does is should recharge the AGM, so it'd be full. And then when there's no load on the alternator, we can suck more amperage from it into the back. That is done with a second relay, which is a time delay. Because the second switch that is there, and the second trigger, which is LC or whatever, it basically cuts the output of this DC-DC charger in half. If that second input doesn't have anything, it will draw 40 amps. If it has 12 volts, it will draw only half, that is 20 amps. So what I'm doing with this, I'm setting this, it doesn't have a screen, but you can set it with this potentiometer. I set it for about 10 minutes. And basically, when the engine is on, this thing draws only 20 amps because I need the front AGM to recharge. After 10 minutes or so, when the AGM is full, it switches to full 40 amps. And then basically, I'm not asking too much from the alternator to supply. I want to keep the alternator healthy. I want to keep the front battery charged, and I don't want to stress the front charging system. And basically after that 10 minutes, everything is fully charged in the front. This can pull full 40 amps if it needs to, and everything works as it should. Then I do have a third relay thingy. This one is triggered by temperature. It has a temperature probe, and this is going to be potentially for the fans if I will need them. So again, we have input, we have output, and we can set temperature threshold when we need that output to be enabled. So I'm gonna set it, again, I'm very bad with Fahrenheit. So with Celsius, for example, if I have an ambient temperature of like 25 degrees, maybe 30 when it's hot, I would set it at, I don't know, 50 degrees C, When it hits that, it turns on the outputs, and I will have a few fans somewhere, and then it's gonna start circulating everything. When the temperature drops, or when it's winter, when it's cold, it will never trigger the output and the fans will never turn on. Because a lot of people, what they do, they have a relay such as this from the remote of the amplifier, but the problem is that whenever the amplifier is on, the fans are working. But what is the point of running the fans if it's cold, or if it's winter, or if it's totally not needed? That's why a temperature trigger relay is a better option, at least I think. So if all of this seems complicated, it really is. Because again, the car system has a totally different ground compared to the front and the positive as well. Now, it might be a problem if I would have analog RCAs from the head unit into the DSP, but since I have a digital signal via coax, it doesn't really matter. There's no ground loops. It cannot be any ground loops because it is a digital signal. And again, it did work in Insignia and it will work here as well. So that's the electrical side. Now the signal side is gonna go like this. The best amplifier, MRV F900, which is this little beast, will power my mid-ranges and tweeters. As I mentioned in the review, it's a dual amplifier setup. It has literally 2 amplifiers inside, for the left side and for the right. So for left, we're gonna run left mid and tweet, and right mid and tweet. Then we do have SQ442 US amps, which is a beast of an amplifier. So at the moment I'm planning to run a Helix i5 8-inch mid bass in the kicks. I still need to install them. This is stable at 2 ohms. It does probably like 300 watts at 2 ohms per channel, which is great. 2 channels for that. The other 2 channels will be bridged for the front subwoofer, which is Stereo Integrity BM11. It is rated, I think, 500 watts, and this bridge can do, I think, 600 or so. So it's gonna be plenty of output. Basically, mid-bass and front subwoofer. Now the ESX, obviously, 3K monoblock, wired down to 1 ohm for the infinite baffle subwoofers, and that recoil, I don't know. I wrote here maybe for rear fill, maybe for shakers under the seats, maybe it's not going to be used at all. So we do have 4 RCAs into the Alpine, 3 RCAs into the US amps, 1 RCA into ESX, and 2 RCAs into the recoil, which is going to be bridged because it is a 4-channel, and I will be using all 10 channels of the DSP. The layout itself, as I mentioned, I didn't look at the wiring at all. I looked only at the actual physical layout of items, but it came out actually better than I expected, because it so happens that this power is gonna go to that side, that power there, and that power there. Everything on power is on this side. The signal is on here, on this side, on the left, which are going to have 2 RCAs there, 2 RCAs there, 4 into there, and another 2 there. The only RCA, the long one for the monoblock, is going to go all the way around somewhere there and in there. That's the only one. And the speaker outputs is going to be from these 2. Probably I'm going to run them into that side next to the RCAs, and from there under the amplifier into there, and we have those outputs there. So I'm planning to use these terminal blocks. I love them. I use them all the time. In the beginning, I thought to run the wires directly into the outputs, but it's just difficult. So I'm going to be using these, and I'm going to put them, I think I'm going to put them somewhere here, maybe on a little board, a wooden MDF board. There's a bolt over there that I can use, and I'm gonna put them there, or maybe somewhere there higher, I don't know, but somewhere on this side. So unintentionally, it so happens that all my signal and outputs are gonna be on this side and all the power on that side. In regards to all of these little relays that I will be using, I will put them over there in that little corner. Again, I'm gonna make a little board out of MDF, and I'm gonna put everything there. Maybe on this one, I don't know, like if I would have a little board on these, I can literally put everything here on the top. I don't know, not sure yet. And another thing is a voltage meter for the lithium. So in the front, you know, I do have two voltmeters that are smaller than this. It's the same principle, but they're smaller. So this voltmeter has 3 wires. Now, why 3? We have ground, we have our positive, which is the yellow one, and we have a red one, which is the trigger one that turns on the actual voltmeter. If I would connect like a normal voltmeter with 2 wires into the lithium, and I'm gonna run 2 wires into the front, it's always going to be on, unless I would put like maybe a relay to trigger that or something else. But now in this case, I'll just need to run positive negative from the actual lithium and this trigger from potentially DSP remote output. So when all the system is on, the voltmeter will turn on and show me the voltage of the lithium. And that's it. This is a very, very long explanation of how everything is gonna go. But the main idea is to have everything in the back to be totally separate from everything in the front. Now, I will continue with this only next week because, again, work, family, all that kind of stuff. I do have quite a lot of wires here. I will try to use as much as I have so that I wouldn't have to buy anything, because again, I don't need thick wires. The only thick wire I need for this monoblock. I'm gonna stop this video here. I hope this explanation kind of made sense for you. If not, watch it again, because the electrical side, especially with these relays, it is a bit complicated, but it's doable. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.